I'd like to move on next to talk about another signature program, and we're going to call in Henry Fadamiro, who's been leading the Small Farms Working Group since its inception. Henry?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I'd like to start by thanking, I joined Jim and Joe to thank all of you for agreeing to serve on the advisory group, advisory council of the center. As personally, as someone who has previously served on the advisory council, I know how important, your job is, and how, we rely on you guys for a lot of resources. So I'm going to talk briefly about one of the signature programs that the center put in place a couple of years ago, which is the Small Farms Working Group. I think the first question somebody might ask is why the focus on small farms? I think the basis is behind this is the fact that, maybe not the fact, but the observation that many of our resources and have traditionally focused on the conventional large-scale farmers. So we consider small farm an underserved community. Although there's still a lot of issues about the working definition of what is a small farm. I'm going to get to that down the road. And so the goal of the Small Farm Working Group is to facilitate implementation of IPM practices by small farms and organic farms. And so this is really a network of specialists from 1860 and 1890 land-grant universities and consultants in the entire region. One of the things we really want to do from the outset is to get 1862 and 1890 specialists talking, which is not has not really been our strength, especially in this region. And so, so when I assembled this group in spring 2012, and what we tried to do was to recruit people from all the 15 states and territories that make up the region. And the people that we recruited are those that we know have interest in small farms or have worked in the past on small farms. And what we also did was we worked with the IPM coordinators in each state to help us identify appropriate individuals to recruit. Currently, we have about 45 members, and these members are from various fields. They include entomologists, plant pathologists, weed scientists, production people, even ag economists. And so it's really a broad group. All right, next slide. So this slide summarizes, the outcome of actually the two meetings that we've had so far. We had our first meeting last year at Clemson University, and then the second meeting we just concluded last week in Florida. I'm not going to read through the entire slide, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. At the first meeting in June of last year, we did a brainstorming session to identify priorities. And there were three themes that emerged. The first priority that people wanted was they wanted a system to help facilitate communication among the members of the working group. The second priority is to come up with a platform to help with communication with the stakeholders. And then the third priority was to sort of establish what they call regional research and demonstration farms, where people can go for training, or maybe even for tours. So these were the three things that emerged from that first meeting. So at the second meeting last week, we tried to develop each of these themes further. For example, we talked about communication among the members. So the members unanimously agreed to adopt Basecamp as a platform for communication among the members. One of the things we are dealing with right now is to, determine an appropriate platform for information sharing, as well as communication with stakeholders. So I know Joe has already mentioned a couple of things about that, so I'm not going to go into details at this point. But I wanted to bring your attention to the participation at the two meetings. So the first meeting, we had 32 participants. The second meeting, we had only 23 participants. And the reason for this was that we initially planned to have the second meeting in Virgin Islands, St. Croix, and we had many people. I think we had almost close to 40 participants that registered. But we made the decision because of the, publicity reasons or whatever. We made a decision to switch from St. Croix to Florida. And because of that, that dropped the number to 23 because people had already made plans. There were a lot of conflicts, regarding the time. So I just want to make sure, I wanted to stress that the reason why we have a lower number of participants this year was because of conflicts. Next slide. So this slide lists the current members of the working group. As you can see, you see a lot of 1890s, 1862, and a few people outside of the land grant. I'm not going to go through this slide, but I just wanted you to have that information in case you need it. Next slide. Okay, so these are just some photos that we took at the meetings. This is the 2012 meeting. We also had, in addition to the planning session and the brainstorming session, we had farm tours, and you can see the pictures there. So this was really very helpful to see, what other farms are doing, and what other small farms are doing in terms of production and pest management. Next slide. So this is the photos that we took at the 2013 meeting. Again, not all participants were captured in these photos, but we just wanted to show you that, at least we're still getting, the interest level is still very high. I might want to mention that at this last meeting, we talked about a few issues. The first issue is the funding. How do we continue to fund this working group? So currently, the working group is funded by the center, and I think we wrote in the center grant maybe that we will fund the working group for about 3 to 4 years. But this is just, the funding is just strictly for the meetings. We need to start looking for funding sources to support our activities. And so this was some of the things that we talked about at the meeting, and we continue to discuss this on Basecamp. We also talked about the issue of information sharing. That continues to be discussed on Basecamp too. So I think this is the last slide from the small farm working group. But I wanted to mention quickly that this is a very exciting opportunity for 1890s and 1862 specialists to network and work together. The optimism is really, and the enthusiasm is really very high, and people are really upbeat about the opportunity that are available to support and and help small farmers. If you have any questions about that, you can email. So you can type in your questions, and maybe I might be able to answer address those questions. Okay, next slide. Go.
Thanks, Henry. So one of the things I just want to interject here is that both Joe and Henry have talked a fair amount about Basecamp. You might be wondering what the heck is this Basecamp. We're going to come back to Basecamp at the end here because the Advisory Council is going to use it too. Henry's done a great job of leading this very diverse group of people in the Small Farms Working Group, many of whom really didn't know each other or know of each other when we first started out. And it's given us, the center, as well as the people amongst themselves, a lot of really good connections.